English FA will ban transgender women from women's football from next season. The Football Association will ban transgender women playing women's football in England from next season. It follows a similar move by the Scottish FA this week after a UK Supreme Court ruling in April that a female is defined by biological sex. In Scotland, only players who were female at birth will be allowed to play in women's football over the age of 13. A statement from the English FA said, "As the governing body of the national sport, our role is to make football accessible to as many people as possible, operating within the law and international football policy defined by UEFA and FIFA. Our current policy, which allows transgender women to participate in the women's game, was based on this principle and supported by expert legal advice. This is a complex subject, and our position has always been that if there was a material change in law, science, or the operation of the policy in grassroots football, then we would review it and change it if necessary. The Supreme Court's ruling on the April 16th means that we will be changing our policy. Transgender women will no longer be able to play in women's football in England, and this policy will be implemented from June 1, 2025. We understand that this will be difficult for people who simply want to play the game they love and the gender by which they identify, and we are contacting the registered transgender women currently playing to explain the changes and how they can continue to stay involved in the game." Previously, the English body had said that its gender policies were being updated as a result of the court ruling, and transgender women could continue to compete as long as their testosterone was below a certain level. Currently, there are not thought to be any transgender women playing women's professional football in either England or Scotland. Only around 20 are believed to play in the grassroots game this season. The new policies for both nations emulate blanket bans on trans women in women's sport introduced by athletics, cricket, and rugby. The Supreme Court ruling on April 16 followed a long-running legal challenge around how sex-based rights are applied through the UK-wide Equality Act 2010. The judges were asked to rule on what that legislation means by sex, whether biological sex or certificated sex as legally defined by the 2004 Gender Recognition Act. They unanimously decided the definition of a woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refers to a biological woman and biological sex. But delivering the verdict, Lord Hodge cautioned, "But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society at the expense of another. It is not. The Equality Act 2010 gives transgender people protection, not only against discrimination through the protected characteristic of gender reassignment, but also against direct discrimination, indirect discrimination, and harassment in substance in their acquired gender. This is the application of the principle of discrimination by association. Those statutory protections are available to transgender people, whether or not they possess a gender recognition certificate." Musk fury over report Tesla's board conducted search for his successor. Tesla's board members have reportedly started a search for someone to replace Elon Musk as CEO, with the claim prompting an angry reaction from the world's richest person. Several executive search firms were approached to find a successor around a month ago, the Wall Street Journal reported. But it added that the current status of the succession planning for the electric carmaker was not known. Tesla's chair, Robin Denholm, later reacted to the report by insisting that any suggestion of an active search was absolutely false. She added that the board was highly confident in Musk's ability to continue executing on the exciting growth plan ahead. He later took to his X platform to denounce the story, writing, "It is an extremely bad breach of ethics that the WSJ would publish a deliberately false article and fail to include an unequivocal denial beforehand by the Tesla board of directors." Musk's net worth has plunged and Tesla stocks have fallen sharply amid a public backlash over his role in Donald Trump's government. He owns just under 13% of Tesla's stock and is the largest shareholder. The world's richest man has been leading the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, where he has overseen the firing of tens of thousands of government employees. He has also supported far-right parties in Europe, which has led to protests against Musk and Tesla, and seen its showrooms and charging stations vandalized across the US and Europe. President Trump has labeled the vandals terrorists. It comes after Musk said the time he spends with Doge would drop significantly from May. He said he would be dedicating more time to running his companies, such as Tesla, SpaceX, and X. The board members met with Musk and asked him to announce publicly he would spend more time at Tesla, the report said. It was unclear if Musk, who is a member of the board, was aware of any attempts to identify a successor, or if his pledge to spend more time at Tesla had affected succession planning, it added. Mr. Trump said Musk could be part of his administration for as long as he wants. "You're invited to stay as long as you want," Mr. Trump said. He said Musk had been treated unfairly for his role in helping Mr. Trump slash the size of the federal government, adding, "You really have sacrificed a lot." Israel releases medic who was detained after IDF attack on aid workers. A paramedic in Gaza who was detained for more than 5 weeks following an Israeli attack that killed 15 aid workers has been released, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, PRCS, said. Asad al-Nasra was one of 17 aid workers who were attacked in Tal al-Sultan in southern Gaza by Israeli forces on March 23. Assad was one of 2 first responders who survived, the other 15 were killed. He was initially thought to be missing, as his body was not among the dead. It was not until April 13, 3 weeks after the attack, that Israel confirmed Assad was alive and in Israeli detention. The PRCS announced Assad's release on X and shared a video of him reuniting with colleagues. Sky News has seen images showing Assad, among other released Palestinians, in a gray tracksuit at Al-Amal Hospital in Khan Yunis, where he is undergoing medical examination, according to the PRCS. Sky News investigated how the attack on the aid workers unfolded, unearthing new evidence earlier this month contradicting Israel's official account of what happened. The Israeli military later released the findings of its own investigation into the incident, saying it had dismissed a deputy commander for providing an inaccurate report. The PRCS claimed the Israeli military's investigation was full of lies. Assad's voice can be heard in a video, initially published by the New York Times, that shows the moments leading up to the attack on the aid workers. The video was discovered on Rifat Radwan's phone, which was found on his body by rescue workers 5 days after the attack. Among those killed were 1 UN worker, 8 paramedics from the PRCS and 6 first responders from Civil Defense, the official fire and rescue service of Gaza's Hamas-led government. UK joins US in strike on Houthi target in Yemen. The UK has joined US forces in attacking a Houthi target in Yemen for the first time since Donald Trump was re-elected. The Ministry of Defense, MOD, confirmed the strikes took place on Tuesday as part of the government's response to Houthi attacks on international shipping in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. The ministry said careful intelligence analysis identified a cluster of buildings used by the Houthis to manufacture the sort of drones used to attack ships, located 15 miles south of the capital Sana'a. RAF Typhoon FGR-4S conducted strikes on several buildings using Paveway 4 precision-guided bombs. The planes had air refueling support from Voyager tankers. The ministry said the strike was conducted after dark to reduce the likelihood of civilians being in the area. All the aircraft returned safely. Defense Secretary John Healey said, "This government will always act in the interests of our national and economic security." Royal Air Force Typhoons have successfully conducted strikes against a Houthi military target in Yemen, and all UK aircraft and personnel have returned safely to base. We conducted these strikes, supported by the US, to degrade Houthi capabilities and prevent further attacks against UK and international shipping. Mr. Healey said Houthi activities in the Red Sea are a persistent threat to freedom of navigation. A 55% drop in shipping through the Red Sea has already cost billions, fueling regional instability and risking economic security for families in the UK. The government is steadfast in our commitment to reinforcing global stability and protecting British working people. "I am proud of the dedication and professionalism shown by the servicemen and women involved in this operation," he said. It was the first time UK forces have struck a target in Yemen since May last year, the ministry confirmed. The US has intensified its strikes on the Iran-backed Houthis under Mr. Trump's presidency, after his re-election in November 2024. The group began launching attacks on shipping routes in November 2023, saying they were in solidarity with Palestinians over Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza. The strike came after a Houthi-controlled TV channel claimed a U.S. strike killed 68 people at a detention center for African migrants in Yemen on Monday. Kamala Harris attacks Donald Trump in biggest speech since U.S. election loss. Former Vice President Kamala Harris has criticized Donald Trump's wholesale abandonment of U.S. ideals during his first 100 days in office in her biggest speech since her election defeat. Ms. Harris accused the president of the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history in her most extensive public comments since conceding in November. She said Mr. Trump's politics benefited the rich and described his narrow, self-serving vision where they punish truth-tellers, favor loyalists, cash in on their power, and leave everyone else to fend for themselves. Instead of an administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing the wholesale abandonment of those ideals, Ms. Harris said on Wednesday, a day after Mr. Trump marked 100 days in office. During the 15-minute speech, she spoke of the anxiety and confusion which have gripped many Democrats since her election defeat, warning things are probably going to get worse before they get better, but she discouraged despair. They are counting on the notion that if they can make some people afraid, it will have a chilling effect on others. But what they have overlooked is that fear is not the only thing that's contagious. Courage is contagious, she said. She delivered the speech to a hometown crowd in San Francisco at an event hosted by Emerge America, an organization which recruits and trains Democratic women, which started after her first run for office in the city. The former vice president is ramping up her public presence as Democrats nationally search for a path forwards after last year's election, in which Republicans also won control of Congress. Ms. Harris is seen as a strong candidate for California governor next year, if she runs, and could be a presidential contender again. Before Wednesday's speech, she had barely mentioned Mr. Trump by name since she conceded defeat to him. The president went after his former rival in a campaign-style rally on Tuesday, marking his 100th day in office. He sarcastically called her a great border czar and a great candidate as he repeated some of the lines he routinely delivered during the campaign. Ultra-processed foods could be linked to thousands of UK deaths a year. Thousands of UK deaths each year could be linked to the consumption of ultra-processed foods, UPFs, analysis suggests. Experts believe there is a relationship between people eating UPFs such as processed meats, ice cream and crisps and an increased risk of early death. UPFs often contain high levels of saturated fat, salt, sugar and additives, which researchers said leaves less room in people's diets for more nutritious foods. The analysis suggested that in 2018 until 2019, some 17,781 premature deaths in the UK could have been linked to UPFs. Such foods also tend to include ingredients that are not normally used when people cook from scratch, including preservatives, emulsifiers, and artificial colors and flavors. Other examples of UPFs include mass-produced bread, some breakfast cereals, biscuits, ready meals, and fizzy drinks. UPFs have previously been linked to an increased risk of early death and a range of health issues, including obesity, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. However, some experts say it is not clear why UPFs are linked to poor health and more studies will be needed to establish the mechanisms involved. The latest study, published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, calls on governments to issue dietary recommendations aimed at cutting consumption of UPFs. In analyzing data from 8 countries, it was found UPFs made up 53% of people's energy intake in the UK, the second highest after 55% in the US. In Colombia, which has a lower consumption of UPFs, premature deaths attributable to these types of foods was 4%. But premature deaths from UPFs jumped to 14% for the UK and the US, according to the research. Lead researcher Eduardo Nilsson, from the scientific body the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation in Brazil, said the study found each 10% increase in the participation of UPFs in the diet increases the risk of death from all causes by 3%. Nerys Asbury, associate professor from the University of Oxford, said it is known that consuming diets higher in calories, fat and sugar can have detrimental effects on health, including premature mortality. More research is needed to ascertain a causal link between UPF and disease and to establish the mechanisms involved, she added.